This video is for Algebra 1, and it is for graphing quadratic functions. This is a very new and different topic for us. You haven't covered this any in junior high. We've touched on it just a little bit this year, so we're going to get in depth with quadratics now. A quadratic function is a function that has an x squared. So an example would be 2x squared minus 3x plus 5. Okay, if you had y equal at the front. This is a quadratic equation because it's got 2x squared in there. There are three parts to a quadratic function. You have the quadratic term, which is the part that has the x squared. You have the linear term, which is the part that has the x. And you have the constant, which is the number with no variable. Remember, a constant is just a number. So 2x squared is my quadratic term, negative 3x is my linear term, and 5 is my constant. Notice I did use that negative with my 3x. You've got to keep the sign with it when you're talking about your different terms. The graph of a quadratic function is either a u or an upside down u. Okay? If x squared is positive, it's going to open up. And when I say open up, what I'm talking about is that the open area is up here at the top. If you have a negative x squared, if it's like negative x squared like that, or negative 2x squared, whatever, it's going to open down. We call that graph a parabola. Okay? You may want to add this over kind of to the right. There's not a lot of space, but somewhere on your page, you want to add this picture. We're going to label the points of the parabola. Graph itself is called a parabola. It's a U. It will either open up or down. It will never be sideways. If it's sideways, it's not quadratic. The first thing we're going to talk about is the vertex. And the vertex is the point, okay, where the graph changes direction. Think about, remember when you're talking in geometry about your vertices, they're the points on the shape. Well, it's the same thing. This is a point, and it's where you're changing direction. So your vertex would be right here. Okay, so go ahead and label that. Okay, it's where the line quit going down and started going up. If you had, you don't have to draw this, but if you had a graph like this, your vertex would be up here at the top. It's where it quit going up and started going down. Okay, the next thing is the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry, remember, if a shape is symmetrical, you can fold it in half and it perfectly covers itself up. Well, same thing here. The axis of symmetry is the line that cuts your graph in half. So that if you folded it on that line, it would perfectly cover itself up. It's going to be a vertical line. It's going to go through your vertex. They draw it as a dashed line because it's imaginary. We don't really have this line going on. It's just saying if you had it. Okay? So this is your axis of symmetry. It's always written x is equal to a number because it's a vertical line, which means x equal a number. You can't just give me the number. You've got to give me x equal. And I'll talk about where the number comes from here in a minute. And then every parabola will have either a maximum point or a minimum point. It will never have both. It's a maximum point if it opens down and your vertex is at the top. It's a minimum point if it opens up and the vertex is at the bottom. So this one would be a minimum, and this one would be a max. Once again, you don't have to draw it. I'm just trying to show you what it means. This vertex here is a minimum point because it's at the bottom of the graph. It's a low point. Okay, to graph a quadratic function using the calculator, first thing you got to do is look at your equation and get y by itself. All the x's and the numbers have to be on the same side together. It's better if x squared is positive. You're going to put it in your calculator by going to y equal. Your y equals at the very, very top over at the left. Clear out what's there. Type your equation in. So you would go to y equal. You would clear out what's there. Let's just say that we were going to put in 2x squared minus 3x plus 5. You would do 2. Your x is over there by the green key. And then you hit the x squared over on the left above the log to get your 2 for squared. And then minus 3x, which is by the green key, plus 5. And that's all you have to do. Then you would press graph so you could see the picture. If the picture doesn't look good, if you can't see it, whatever, you want to start by going to zoom standard, which is zoom 6. And if that doesn't work, then you may have to zoom out. Okay? If you zoom out, that's 3, and you have to enter before it actually zooms out. And then we'll talk about how to get the vertex and whatnot from that in just a minute. So let's look down here at number 1. The first part we're going to do is identify the 3 terms, the quadratic, linear, and constant. You can get this straight from your equation. Quadratic term, remember, is the part that has x squared. So on this one, it's just x squared. Your linear term is negative 4x. Make sure you include that sign. And your constant is 5. You should be able to tell by looking at the equation if it opens up or down. Remember, up means that x squared is positive. Down means that you have a negative x squared. Ours is positive, so it opens up. So then let's skip down here and figure out if it opens up, is your vertex going to be a maximum or a minimum? Well, it's going to be at the bottom, which would be a minimum. So all of those answers you can get just from looking at the equation itself. Now, if you're not sure about the way it opens, you're not sure about the minimum or maximum, you can always graph it and look at your calculator. So let's put it in. We'll go to y equal. We'll clear everything out. X squared minus 4x plus 5. Press graph. If you can't see it, go to zoom 6. And you notice that it does indeed open up. It does have a minimum point. Okay, the next thing we've got to do is find the vertex. Let's go back to the top of your notes. And when it's talking about finding the vertex, I want you to add a little note to yourself here. To find the vertex, you're going to do second, calc, and then either max or min. So just add that to your note somewhere. Second, calc, max, or min. So on this one that we're working on, we've got our equation in. Second is the blue button. Calc is up there at the very top. It's above the trace. And then we said this was a minimum, so we're going to choose number 3, min. Now, my graph looks something like this. Not perfect, but kind of. Okay? This is my vertex, right? This point right down here at the bottom. That's what I'm trying to find the value of, the point, the numbers I'm going to put there. Okay? Once you have done second, calc, min, you have a cursor on your screen. Get your cursor before or to the left of the vertex and press enter 1 time. Now, once you've pressed enter, you must use the right arrow key. So press your right arrow key until your cursor gets past. And so somewhere over here to the right of the vertex, and you're going to press enter 2 times. And like mine says, the x is 1.9999987 and y is 1. We're going to do some rounding here. My vertex is 2, 1. It's important that you go from left to right when you're finding the vertex. It's important that you press enter once, then go to the right, get past the vertex, and press enter twice. Your axis of symmetry, we said, was always x is equal to a number. It's always going to be the x number or the first number of your vertex. So on this one, it's x equals 2. Okay, let's try another one. Number 2, your quadratic term is x squared. Your linear term is negative 4x, and your constant is negative 5. X squared is positive, so it opens up. If it opens up, my vertex is a minimum. Now I'm ready to go to my calculator. Now, if you'll notice, this was very similar to the last problem. All you've got to do is arrow over there and change the plus 5 to a minus 5. Press graph just to get a glance of it. Yes, it still opens up. Yes, it is a minimum. So this time, my graph looks something like this. To find the vertex, I'm going to go second, calc, number 3 for minimum. My cursor starts out there. That's great. Press enter. Go to the right. It's okay that you can't really see the vertex, but you can tell when it comes back up. When it's to the right, you're going to do enter, enter. You're going to do a little bit of rounding, and your vertex is 2, negative 9. So your axis of symmetry always starts x equal, and it's the x value of your vertex, so x equal 2. Looking at number 3, your quadratic term is negative x squared. Your linear term is 4x. Your constant is negative 5. This one had a negative x squared, which tells me that it opens down. If you're not sure, put it in y equal, look at the graph. If it opens down, you're going to have a maximum point. Now we'll go to y equal, clear it out, and put it in. Make sure you use the negative and not the minus sign for negative x squared, plus 4x minus 5. Look at your graph. Your graph looks something like this. We're going to find our vertex. This time we're going to do second, calc, max. So second, calc, and we're going to choose number 4 for maximum. Your cursor starts over here. Press enter. Go to the right until you get past your vertex. There is no set point past the vertex. You can be close to it. You can be far from it. It doesn't matter. Enter, enter. And our vertex is 2, -1, which means my axis of symmetry is x equal 2. Looking at number 4, you would need to move that 5x squared over here and add it before you start answering your questions. So now my quadratic is 5x squared. My linear is -10x, and my constant is -15. It's out of order, but that's okay. As long as you realize x squared is quadratic, the x is linear, the constant's a number by itself. Positive x squared, so it opens up and has a minimum. Go to y equal, clear it out, and you have -10x minus 15 plus 5x squared. Look at your graph, and you can't really see the vertex. It looks something like this. And we don't see this bottom part. Not a big deal. If you'll go second, calc, number 3 for minimum, you can't even see your cursor. So go to the left until you see your cursor. Hit enter. Go to the right until the cursor disappears and comes back on the right. And enter, enter. And we have 1, -20, which means my axis of symmetry is x equal 1. Number 5, your quadratic term is x squared. There is no x, so there's not a linear term, so you need to put 0. The constant is -5. X squared is positive, so it opens up and has a minimum. Go to y equal, clear it out. X squared minus 5. Look at your graph. Find your vertex. Second, calc, number 3 for minimum. Get to the left, enter. Get to the right, enter, enter. Okay, mine shows mine shows 2.4237 -6. That's my x. Anytime you see that e, it's going to be 0. Okay? So my vertex is actually 0, -5, which makes my axis of symmetry x equals 0. So anytime on your calculator when you see that e to a negative something, the value for x is actually 0. Okay, on this one, you're not going to have to do the one on the homework like it, so don't worry about it on the notes either. This was graphing quadratic functions. You get to omit numbers 6, 7, and 8. So you can omit 6, 7, and 8. There is a matching at the very end on the last page. There's 2 equations and there's 3 graphs. Just draw a line from the equation to the graph it goes with. I want you to do the matching, but you can skip 6, 7, and 8. Don't worry if you have questions. You can come find me during speed.